Milwaukee Bucks fans, welcome back to Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. I'm your host, Dean Simon. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and also turn on those post notifications to stay up to date and in the know with all the latest Milwaukee Bucks updates. All right, so this first segment here today is kind of piggybacking off of an idea that was proposed maybe in the last episode or the one before that, where I was talking for a little bit about a proposed blockbuster three-team trade that would send De'Aaron Fox to the Milwaukee Bucks in exchange for a package including Kyle Kuzma, Tyler Smith, Gary Harris, and first round pick swaps going back to the Spurs, and then Andre Jackson Jr. to the Hawks, I believe. And that was the whole blockbuster trade scenario that doesn't really hold up under any circumstances. And while that seemed as crazy of a hypothetical as ever, a recent article from Forbes Brian Sampson came out that it's kind of imploring the Bucks to really consider going after De'Aaron Fox and truly becoming a huge trade suitor or player going towards the trade deadline maybe this year or in the offseason of next year, because basically the San Antonio Spurs are going to have to decide whether or not they want to extend De'Aaron Fox. And this is in the midst of them developing their guard room with Stephon Castle, the reigning rookie of the year, with their newly drafted Dylan Harper, with even a guy like Devin Vassell who proved in recent years that he can average 20 for a season in any given year. The Spurs have a lot of decisions to make, or they have to kind of make room where there isn't any. And De'Aaron Fox is going to be a likely casualty of just the Spurs already having their guard room set for the long term future. So with the Bucks, there could be legitimate interest from the Bucks front office, and again, Brian Sampson of Forbes is basically imploring the Bucks to really go after him, but he is also realistic in his assessment of whether or not the Bucks could actually trade for him. And he says, and I quote, "Fox checks every box for what the Bucks need: an elite playmaker, a proven scorer, a dynamic backcourt presence who can take pressure off Giannis. He would instantly become their number two option and elevate the team's ceiling in the Eastern Conference. But here's the problem: Milwaukee has almost nothing to offer in a trade. The Spurs just sent out a mountain of picks to get Fox. The Bucks can't match that. The most they can offer is an unprotected 2031 first round pick, which will be very valuable, a 2032 pick swap, and a 2031 second rounder. That's it. That's the entire war chest." And when you put it like that, and you really flesh out all of the Bucks draft assets and young guys that could potentially go back in a De'Aaron Fox blockbuster trade, it really does boil down to Kyle Kuzma and young guys and the 2031 first round pick. And that's what the Spurs would have to agree to if the Bucks really were to seriously consider adding De'Aaron Fox. But on paper, you really can't ignore the perfect basketball fit of De'Aaron Fox. While, I think he has improved substantially on the defensive end in recent years. His play style is exactly what the Bucks would need, especially if they're looking to seriously run in transition and get out on the break consistently, as we've covered in recent episodes. Like, that's going to be their identity, that's their philosophy, and that's what everything is pointing to, is that Giannis is going to really take control of the offense, especially on the break this next coming year, and they're going to attack downhill. And there's not really any better point guard specifically in the NBA that's better attacking in transition, going coast to coast in the blink of an eye than De'Aaron Fox. Possibly pound for pound the fastest player in the league, but he has also rounded out his offensive game. He's developed a great mid-range jump shot. He's getting out to the three-point line, though, in his last stretch with the Spurs, or his first half season with the Spurs, he did not really knock down the three wall efficiently, but he has shown that he is slowly adding it to his game, and the mid-range jumper has always been there. Great ball handler, amazing playmaker. He has incredible vision, and he just would be the perfect archetype of player to pair with Giannis, to pair with Myles Turner. If that dominant defensive front court gets a block or a pass is tipped, De'Aaron Fox is out and running, and no one's catching him. So that would just be amazing if the Bucks were to pull off the hypothetical blockbuster to get De'Aaron Fox. But then the concern is that they would have to pay him, of course, because that's what the Spurs that's the hole the Spurs are staring into right now, is that regardless, he's going to have to get an extension. He's going to have to get a new contract. So which team is it going to be that does that ponies up that kind of money? Will it be the Spurs? Will it be another team that he potentially gets traded to? Who knows? but the Bucks could definitely jump in and at least see if the Spurs are willing to listen to anything for De'Aaron Fox at the very least. But anyways, in a little bit less important news, but still very important to me, it's been revealed as the Bucks on their social media accounts have been teasing a return of the Cream City jerseys, and they haven't been around in the past, I believe, 5 or 6 years, and that was because of complications with the jersey meshing, like the cream color of the jersey meshing with on court ads and symbols and things of that nature. So the jerseys were effectively banned, and they've been gone for about a half decade. But now they are looking to return because I guess maybe the NBA has moved on to different sponsors. They have different colors that are being represented through their ads on the court. So the Cream City jerseys are a go. Personally, they are one of my all-time favorite jerseys, not even just as someone that supports the Milwaukee Bucks, but just I am a sucker for tan or beige clothing in general, but that jersey, that cream colored jersey, that is just it's been unbelievable, and I wish I owned one and I could show one off right now, but sadly I don't. Though it will be making a return allegedly, and sources like the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel have also, gotten on and really all but confirmed that on August 1st, there's going to be a Cream City jersey reveal, and I am here for it. Anyways, back to the. You know what? No, we're going to stay on jerseys for a second because Kyle Kuzma, he announced that he is going to be switching back to the number 0, and I feel like it's creating a little bit more of a storm online than I really thought it would, because of course that was Damian Lillard's number. It's always been Damian Lillard's number, and he just exited, and he exited so, quickly and abruptly that people are still kind of trying to grasp what just happened. And he didn't necessarily leave a legacy with the number 0, but Damian Lillard has made the number 0 in, on NBA jerseys mean something regardless of where he's been. Just because of his whole backstory and the letter O, and just his whole story from childhood to his beginning stages of the NBA career to Milwaukee. He has carried that number 0 like the letter O. And Kyle Kuzma will now be taking that number 0, but it's not as big of a stink as I really think it's going to be, because Kyle Kuzma did some of his best work with, wearing the number 0. Of course, on the Lakers in 2020, he was a huge part of that title team in the bubble, and he was donning number 0 for it. So I'm hoping that in some way, maybe the number 0 brings something out of Kyle Kuzma that kind of makes him feel a little bit more at home in the Bucks rotation, and helps him get into a little bit more of a rhythm. And believe it or not, there are a lot of players in the NBA that kind of have superstitions and things that they feel like they have to follow in order for things to go right, and for things to feel right during a game. And Kyle Kuzma getting the chance now to wear the number 0 for Milwaukee, maybe, hopefully it could be enough for him to contribute to a semi-competitive team in a wide open Eastern Conference in 2025-26. And now, moving on from jersey talk, we're going to move more towards the end of the bench and talking about the Bucks' depth, because it's really something that I feel like has gone under the radar in, just over the past couple of weeks, with the Bucks bringing back several key guys on great team-friendly deals. I feel like people don't realize the level of depth that the Bucks have and that they were able to retain. And the guys at Brew Hoop, specifically Zach Day, he hosted sort of a Q&A forum, and he calls it Questions and Antlers, which I think is very creative. But he was basically responding to a question from a fan, from a reader, in which they were talking about whether fans can expect Doc Rivers to really tap into the Bucks end of the bench and the end of the reserves, and maybe play a 10 or 11 man lineup to get some fresh legs out on the court and kind of overwhelm opposing teams with their fresh legs. And Zach Day responded in a way that I thought was completely correct. And he said that, "I think the roster speaks to this intention. Doc has to have noticed what Indiana did to them the past 2 years, not to mention the ever increasing league wide pace and space trends. And with so many players with the ability to contribute, it just seems logical." Taking notes from the Indiana Pacers and their incredible playoff run this past year will, hopefully Doc Rivers really does take this into account how the Pacers were able to systematically break down not just the Bucks, but every team that they faced in the at least from the Eastern Conference part of it, because they were taking on the Titans of the Eastern Conference, and they were able to get away with, not having such a top heavy roster because guys like Aaron Nesmith and of course Benedict Mathurin showed out, and TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin, and Ben Shepherd even got some minutes. There was just this overwhelming sense of no matter who plays for the opposing team that's going against the Pacers will bring somebody in that can perfectly counter them and that hasn't seen the court in the last 12 minutes, and that's just ready to go. And that's something that Doc Rivers could definitely take from the Pacers, really tapping into their rotation, especially if they're going to try and get younger guys involved, like, if they're going to try and get Ryan Rollins really involved in the rotation and guys like Chris Livingston and Tyler Smith, if they're going to get more of a chance to shine at a more consistent rate. Uh, I think the Bucks, just number one, because their main goal, at least it appears to be, that they're going to be outrunning and outgunning teams on the fast break this year. So you're really going to have to tap into your rotation and pull out a 10 or 11 man lineup, maybe even 12 guys on certain nights if you're really going to be running up and down the floor. But anyways, that'll be it for me today. Thank you very much for watching another episode of Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. Again, I've been Dean Simon, and make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications to stay up to date and in the know with all the latest Milwaukee Bucks updates. I will see you guys in the next one, and go Bucks.